Welcome to the Hardcore MBA Podcast with your host, Erlend Bakke.
Well, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good night, or good evening. Today I'm here with Bob Burg. Where are you signing in from, Bob?
I am home in Jupiter, Florida today.
And you predominantly you speak at conferences about leadership and sales, and you've spoken on the same stage as former US presidents. You've sold a bunch of books, more than 1 million books in fact, translated into more than 21 languages, and you're in Florida, you're living the good life. How are you today?
I'm doing great, thanks, and it's really a pleasure to be with you today. Thank you for having me on your show.
So tell us about the concept of the GoGiver.
Well, the GoGiver itself is a business parable. So it's a work of fiction based on principles that have obviously been proven to work for probably since time immemorial. There's nothing particularly new in there. I co-authored it with John David Mann, who's a fantastic writer and storyteller, really the lead writer. The GoGiver itself, the premise, is simply that shifting one's focus, and this is really key, shifting one's focus from getting to giving. And when we say giving, Erlend, in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing value to others. And that doing so is not only a nice way to do business, it's a very financially profitable way to do business as well.
So I know the ancient Stoics, they had some rules, the Roman Stoics, where Marcus Aurelius was one of them. And one of his big things was to serve mankind. That was one of the main purposes in that philosophy. Why is it challenging for most of us to give before we get? Where's that come from?
Well, great question. And I think much of that has to do with the basic philosophy that the world gives us, that's not the way it works, right? That you've got to look out for yourself. Not that looking out for yourself isn't important. Of course, we also have to look out for ourselves, of course. But that if we don't look out for ourselves, totally and completely and in a paranoid way, people will take advantage of us and this will happen and that will happen. And in the real world, it's about taking for yourself in terms of, it's a zero-sum game, right? You've got a pie, and if you want a bigger piece of pie, you must take someone else's piece, right? But really, that's not the way life works, and it's not the way business works. Really, when you want a bigger piece of pie, what you do is you bake a bigger pie, okay? And often that is creating that pie along with others, because, hey, aside from ourselves, everyone else is not us, right? And so we can't do it ourselves. It takes a team in order to build that pie. Now, but that doesn't absolve us of the responsibility of being that person who is the mover, the person who is the initiator, the one who is a creator of value, the one who creates the relationships with others, that develops that relationship where people know us, they like us, they trust us, they want to be part of our life, they want to see us succeed, they know that by being involved with us, they're more likely to receive. So what Marcus Aurelius said is really true, and it is about looking for ways to benefit others. But there's nothing self-sacrificial about that. Okay, there's nothing about that says you should be a doormat or that's a necessary part of doing for others. The way the world works, just like planting the seed and planting the seeds before we harvest, when we give value to others, genuinely, authentically, okay, not as a way to get something, but as a way to just live as a good person who looks to provide value to the marketplace, the natural way of the marketplace, of the free marketplace, is that people are going to do business with you because they obviously see you and what you bring to the table as being of value to them, and that's fine.
So, for instance, when I started out in business in 2007, I was definitely mostly in it for myself. I remember I'd read this book, How to Get Rich by Felix Dennis, and it was more of the sort of strategic, sort of how to be more of a shark in business.
Well, it's funny with that book. I read that book too, and what was so disappointing about it was that here's Felix Dennis, a brilliant man who provided so much value through the businesses he created, okay? And yet he kind of went back to those memes that you've got to be this nasty and mean and just look out for yourself alone. And it was so incongruent because that's not what Felix Dennis did in order to build his businesses. Remember, in a again, I'll use the term free market-based environment, which most people don't understand what it means, which is the only reason I hesitate to use it. It simply means that no one's forced to do business with you. People are free to buy, sell, exchange with one another because they both believe it's the right thing to do, that they choose to do so. No one's forcing them. There's no government force. Government is, their legitimate function is to protect the individual against force and fraud, but other than that, to simply leave people free to buy, sell, trade with one another as they see fit. Okay, that's what helps build an economy. It's what helps build a bigger pie. In a free market-based economy, no one is going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet. They're not going to buy from you because you need the money. They're not going to buy from you even though you're a nice person and you think they should buy, it would be right. And they're not going to buy from you because you're some jerk who is only in it, for because you think you can gain and the other person's going to lose. Who would buy from someone willingly like that? No, they're going to buy from you because they believe that by doing so, they are better off than by not doing so. And it was such a shame that Mr. Dennis, in that otherwise brilliant book with wonderful ideas, kind of felt the need to put that in there that you must be nasty and, I felt badly about that because otherwise it was a very good book.
He also, he passed away recently of cancer.
Oh,
and,
I didn't know that. I'm sorry.
And so did Steve Jobs, so both sort of successful entrepreneurs, but so where do you feel like they go wrong? Because obviously when you get cancer, it's a disease in the body, and probably caused by the sort of stresses of having that kind of mindset instead of sort of waking up and saying, okay, how can I contribute to the world?
Well, I don't know that that's anything related to it. I do believe that both Felix Dennis and Steve Jobs did want to contribute to the world. I think the way that Felix Dennis phrased what he was doing was incongruent with what he did. If you look at Steve Jobs, remember, Steve Jobs had a much bigger, Steve Jobs was not about the money, okay? He was a very, very wealthy man. It was as a result of the great value he provided to so many people. Steve Jobs' mission was to make a dent in the universe, right? And when you think about it, people say, well, Steve Jobs was kind of not a nice guy and, he yelled at people and was kind of, well, yeah, he did have that personality. There's no doubt about that. But when you think about it, he still had to follow the correct principles to earn the kind of money he did. We talk about in the GoGiver, the 5 laws of stratospheric success. The first one being the law of value, which is to provide to give more in value than what you take in payment. That doesn't mean you don't make a profit, you make a great profit. But it means that when people buy from you, they feel they're getting much more in value than what they're paying for. Look at all the people who bought Steve Jobs, including me, all the things he created, right? Why? It wasn't because we cared about Steve Jobs for good or for bad. It was because we were getting more in value from buying this than from not buying it. So we had to follow that law. The second law, your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. Well, if you've ever seen the lines at the Apple store when the new Apple products came out, he served a lot of people. Law number 3, the law of influence, is that your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. Well, please understand with Steve Jobs, even though he did not do market testing or he did not do focus groups, he had a way of knowing what the market was going to want. And when he got it right, wow, he did great. But remember, it was about what the market wanted. And any business that survives, any business that thrives, has to please the marketplace. Law number 4, the law of authenticity, the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. Well, he was very authentic. He was what he was. And law number 5, the law of receptivity, the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. He certainly did that. He died a multi-billionaire. So, being a go-giver, while we like to think most go-givers are awesome, also genuinely nice people, it doesn't have to be the case. What you do have to do is you need to follow the 5 laws, which, again, these are not new laws. We may have named them differently and explained them differently in a story form, but these are the laws that people, successful people have followed since there have been market economies.
So in terms of, because one thing is sort of reading a book and another thing is actually implementing these things into one's life. What are the kind of suggestions that you have for people that sort of, we hear something awesome like your 5 laws, and then we say, okay, we're going to do this, and then like 3 weeks later we forget about them?
Oh, that's true. And that's why if you recall, the one condition for mentorship in the book, when Pindar was talking to Joe, the protege, the one condition for mentorship was you must apply each law that you learn that very day before you go to sleep at night. Because what Pindar was saying was you've got to take action on these, okay? And I think that's the key. Well, first, it's understanding why it's important to do so. Because if we don't understand that we need to improve in some way, we're never going to do it, obviously, right? We must be aware of the problem or the challenge before we're going to take action on it. But once we are, then, as you said, you can buy the book, you can buy the audios, you can buy the what have you, but if you don't take action on it, nothing is going to happen. And so you've got to prepare to take action. And so we would say, is take action on each law. And as Pindar said to Joe, don't think about it. Don't question, will this work or why won't it work? Just go ahead and apply it. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just apply it in some way. Start to take action. This is why it's important, as well as being a go-giver, to be a go-getter, a person of action, because nothing happens if we don't take action. The opposite of a go-giver is not a go-getter. We want people to be go-getters and go-givers. A go-getter, a person of action. A go-giver, someone whose focus is on the other person. The opposite of a go-giver is a go-taker. And that's that person who feels entitled to take without having added value to the person, to the process, to the situation.
So I've got a 2-part question. The first one is, why did you choose to sort of tell the story, like all the lessons that you teach in a sort of story format? And then the second part is, can you sort of walk us through the story?
Sure. We did it in parable form because parables are just really fun to read, and they connect with people on an emotional level. And I think when we connect with people on an emotional level, we create the environment for them to want to take action because they can visualize how it would happen. Years ago, I wrote a how-to book called Endless Referrals, Network Your Everyday Contacts into Sales. It has sold very well. It's been around forever. And it's a how-to. It's how to build the relationships that will result in people knowing, liking, trusting you, doing business with you, referring you to others. But again, it's a how-to book. And so I thought, what if we could take the basic premise of Endless Referrals, which is all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust, and put it in parable form. Now, how do you build those kinds of relationships? You constantly and consistently give value to others. So we came up with the name, the Go-Giver. And then, the first thing I did was ask John David Mann, who I knew from being he was the editor-in-chief of a magazine I used to write for, and I knew his reputation as a fantastic writer. I asked him if he would co-author it with me and really be the lead storyteller. He's just so, I'm more of a how-to guy. It's how I speak, teach, write. John is a brilliant storyteller. So then, that's how we went about it. We came up with the story ideas, and it was about Joe, and Joe was this ambitious, aggressive, up and coming, yet very frustrated young business person. And he, as hard as he worked, and he did, and he was a good guy, well-meaning, but he really had his focus in the wrong place. It was all about Joe, right? At the beginning of the story, it was who owed Joe what, and why isn't this happening for Joe, and I've got to do this. And it wasn't about his customers, it was about Joe. Right. And like so many people in life, they get to a certain level by being I focused or me focused. But it's not until they make that shift from that me focus to that other focus that they really achieve significant success. And so he met with Pindar, who introduced him to some other people who taught him the various laws and so forth. And we kind of wove that story in with a personal story of Joe's with he and his wife. And, it was kind of fun to go along. We didn't even have the names of most of the laws until we wrote them. We knew what we wanted them to be about, but we named them. It's sort of the story started to write itself after a while. It was a lot of fun.
It's interesting. I'm working on my third book at the moment, and
excellent.
And you kind of know, like you have this feeling about what it's going to be, but you don't really have it. Because a lot of people might think, oh yeah, you just know what to do, and then you just do it. No. It's chaotic, sort of lovable and frustrating thing at the same time. I have a question about the go-giving mindset. Does it have anything to do with like Maslow hierarchy of needs? So like if you don't give enough to yourself first, then you will then you don't feel fulfilled. Does it have anything to do with fulfillment?
It's an interesting question, and certainly the Maslow's hierarchy of needs is very legitimate, very, very true. I think with this, what we're really saying is not, because remember, there's nothing self-sacrificial about being a go-giver. You really can't give what you don't have, but there are ways to be able to give what you do have in ways that are different necessarily than what we would think. You can always give value in ways to people with information that they may find valuable. You can give context to others. You can, educate others. You can give others time. And then, of course, as you're in the process of working with that person as a potential customer, what really are you giving them? You're giving them time, attention, counsel, education, empathy. You're giving them value. When you're an entrepreneur, and if you're watching this and thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, the biggest thing to realize is that selling is not what many people think it is, which is trying to convince someone to buy something they don't want or need, right?
Buy
or
this
just
now.
Just right. Here's what really selling is, and if you understand this, it totally changes the way you go about business. I define selling as simply discovering what the other person wants, needs, desires, and helping them to get it. That's what selling is. So you listen, you ask questions, and you listen. And you listen not to sharp angle them into a close or to overcome something. You listen to understand and to determine how you can help them. And what a great salesperson does is once they know what this other person needs, wants, and desires, they match the benefits of their product or service with those needs, wants, and desires. That's selling. That's selling.
I think another thing with the go-giving mindset is that it's more, not necessarily always, but it's more of a long-term strategy. Just like, because a lot of entrepreneurs will start in business and they'll be broke, right? They'll buy things, they'll spend things, and they'll lose money, and then they're like, oh, we need money now. Let's just get sales now. But is that really how the sales process works?
Well, the premise of that, and I love that you bring it up because it's so intuitive to think, yeah, well, this go-giver stuff and focusing on others, that's great when you're already successful, and have the money to do it. But hey, I need the money now. I need to go do things. Okay, so here's what I would say to this person who feels that way. Let's say you are the salesperson. You have a prospect in front of you, okay? And that prospect is going to consider buying your product or service, okay? And you are desperate. You need the money right now, okay? Forget about this go-giver stuff for right now. That's later, right? So we're going to do it the traditional, right? Me against them. And this prospect knows, either consciously or maybe even unconsciously, that your goal is to get their money. Okay. Oh, you may ask some questions to, prospecting questions or, questions to figure out, but it's really, and they know it's only so that you can make the sale. Your focus is on yourself. Your focus is on the commission. Your focus is on your desperation. Is that person going to be more likely or less likely to buy from you right now? And, I think most of us would say less likely.
Right.
So now say you go in the same situation and hey, you're just starting out. You need the money. Okay. You need this to happen, but you're going to suspend this temporarily. Okay. You're going to suspend it, not forgo it, but you're going to suspend that neediness and that I focus. And you're going to go in there and your entire focus is going to be on providing value to this person. And they can tell, whether consciously or unconsciously, that your goal is to please them, to bring them significant value. You ask questions and you listen to understand. You ask questions, and when they have a concern, you don't interrupt, but you let them finish. And then you find the actual cause of the issue and you work on it together. Everything that you're doing communicates that your goal is to provide them with value. Is that person going to be more likely to buy from you now or less likely to buy from you now? And I think we'd all say more likely.
Yeah.
Now, please don't misunderstand also, being a go-giver doesn't mean you don't ask for the order. Okay, again, there's nothing, I want to make sure people don't misinterpret that it would be a go-giver as some kind of, whatever, doormat or reactive type of, no. You ask for the order because that's part of business, part of sales. Typically, people aren't going to say, okay, well, listen, this is great, let's write it up. Sometimes that will happen, but not often. We need to ask for the order. But when you do it the go-giver way, what happens is you're simply asking them to take action on something they've already told you they want to do. So when you say, would you like to get started? Or can I have this delivered then next week? Or, however it would be based on what you sell. It's a simple yes or no. There's no trickery involved. There's nothing because again, you've earned that trust and you've demonstrated to them, you've communicated along with them why this is in their best interest.
And you've now written many versions of the Go-Giver. What are those versions and how are they different than the main book?
Well, we have the Go-Giver, which is the original story, the parable. Then we followed that up with Go-Givers Sell More, in which we took a lot of examples of people who utilized the Go-Giver book and put it into their own business and had these great success stories. And of course, we featured many who were doing this long before they ever heard of the Go-Giver, and we used those as examples. So it was sort of it wasn't a how-to book, but it was sort of the application aspect of the Go-Giver. And that one itself has sold over 100,000 copies. And, we're very happy about that. And then the latest one is called the Go-Giver Leader. And that just sort of answers the question people have asked, well, how does the Go-Giver philosophy fit into the leadership context?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And in terms of leadership, what is the main what are leaders like in the first place? What's the stereotypical leader, and then how does the go-giving attitude change that?
Well, the stereotypical leader is focused on the leader. They're focused on themselves and focused on the bottom line. Now, by the way, stereotypical. I didn't say typical because there are a lot of good leaders out there.
Yeah.
But the stereotypical leader is, it's leadership by position. I'm the boss. It's my way or the highway. They're looking they're looking out for themselves and the company's bottom line, but they don't necessarily care about the employees. That's that stereotypical leadership. And hey, unfortunately, there are still a lot of those left. Right. There are a lot of great leaders out there, but there are also a lot that really aren't. The go-giver leader kind of comes into it understanding that they are charged with a heavy responsibility, and that is to serve others, to serve those on their team, to serve those they are leading. They understand that great leadership is never about the leader. Great influence is never about the influencer, just like great salesmanship is never about the salesperson. It's always about the other person. So it's how does this leader create the context for those they are leading to become successful?
And What are some examples from your personal life in terms of go-giving, things that you've done that sort of have worked well?
Well, I mean, I'd like to think that I've been doing this for, a long time, and it's certainly how I built my sales business and how I built my speaking and information business. So it's sort of, it's difficult to, come up with examples because this is just what we do. It's always looking for ways to provide value to others, to those who we're working with. When we do a webinar, our goal is to have people come away from this webinar thinking, wow, I mean, compared to what I paid, this was amazing information. But it's also how they're treated. There's so many ways to provide additional value beyond the intrinsic value of the product or the service. There's probably hundreds of ways. They tend to come down to 5 what we call elements of value. And they are excellence, consistency, attention, empathy, and appreciation. And when you are able to combine those 1, 2, or hopefully all 5 of them with every transaction, you've gone a long way to taking price totally out of the equation and separating yourself from everyone else. The fact is technology has leveled off the playing field. So most products and services in the world today, they work. They work well, and they're sold, cheaper, less expensively than ever before. And if a prospective customer doesn't see any significant difference in a product or a service, it's always going to come down to who has the lowest price. Right. And if you're, for your viewers who are up and coming entrepreneurs, just starting entrepreneurs, plan to be entrepreneurs, I want to just, suggest to you that unless your last name is Walmart, that you don't try to make low price your selling proposition. Mm-hmm. Okay? When you sell on low price, in the eyes of your customers, you're a commodity. Yeah. When you sell on value, high value, you're a resource. So what you need to do is separate yourself from the rest through that excellence, consistency, attention, empathy, appreciation. I can't tell you how many people, when I go to a live conference to speak, how many people will say, oh, the people in your office were just amazing to work with. And that's right, they are. They're excellent, and they're consistently excellent. And they pay attention to the needs of the customers. They're empathetic to their concerns, and they always express gratitude and appreciation. It's the same when people with the, whether it's a webinar, whether it's a product, whether it's our GoGiver Sales Academy, whether it's whatever, people come away from it not only with the intrinsic value of the product or service, which is important, that's going to happen, but it's that extra that you put into it that really says to people, we care about you.
So in terms of book sales, this is the book that's done the best. What did you do differently with this book compared to the other books?
Well, one is having John David Mann as the co-author. Right. Because when you've got someone like John who knows how to weave a story and is so brilliant, that certainly helps. So the story, but I'll also tell you something else. We have continued to promote this book since it first came out. Right. We've never stopped doing interviews, never stopped speaking on it, you know what I'm saying? So you continue to put it out there. Now, it's a very referral-based book. A lot of people buy these books as holiday presents, or they buy them for everyone on their team, for their kids, for their, that's fine. And we love that. That's what makes it happen. But we have to keep keep it going in terms of having it out there for people to know it's out there, because you never know when someone hears an interview or reads a blog post or sees something and they get the book, and all of a sudden it goes up to middle management and it goes up to the CEO, and all of a sudden there's 10,000 people in the company who are reading the book, and you've got you know what I'm saying? And so that's what it's even gotten to schools now. We even put together a curriculum for students that we did with one of the teachers who originally got the book and started using it in his class. So you just don't know. So for it to sell that many, typically it's a combination of the product itself being good, which again, I attribute that to John David Mann's writing, and also the way you continue to promote it. And you promote it because you believe in it and it's something you want to do.
John was the person that put us in contact.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Yeah, so he's doing the go-giving thing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, John's fantastic, absolutely. That's right, I forgot about that, yeah. Yes.
So in terms of, you talk about mentorship as well. I've had lots of mentors up and coming, like I'm making a lot of sense right now. I've had mentors previously, but right now I don't have a mentor.
Right.
What do you recommend for finding mentors? And what's
Well,
your advice on that?
well, no, there's actually many levels to that, because there's the mentors we can have through, reading their books. Ben Franklin is one of my favorite mentors, right? From, a couple hundred years ago, and from hundreds and you mentioned earlier, Marcus Aurelius and those amazing, right? There's so much wisdom out there. They can be mentors, but there's also mentors that we know personally. And there's mentors that are people who come into your life for a little while, and there are mentors with whom you have longer relationships with.
Right.
I've always been very lucky. Aside from my main mentors, my parents, who I was very blessed to grow up as the child of, it seems as though whether it's teachers or coaches or sales managers or someone, there's always been people that appeared at the right time, when I needed some help. But let's talk for a moment about that sort of ongoing mentor that people would like to have. And it's a great idea, because obviously when you have a great mentor, it can cut your learning curve years and years. And obviously you want to have someone who has had a level of success that you aspire to, perhaps in the same business you're in, but it doesn't have to be that way. Since a mentor is generally the 20,000-foot view, if you will, success principles are transferable. So I would certainly look for a mentor who has proven that they are a successful person, successful business person, successful. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't have to be, but the finding the mentor and approaching them is where people have an issue, I think.
Okay.
One thing I would suggest not to do is to approach someone, and again, it can be through any medium. It can be through social media, it can be through email, it can be through the phone, it could be through being, seeing them in person. But regardless, I would suggest not approaching someone and saying, "Hey, would you be my mentor?" Because what happens is, this person doesn't know you. And you come up to them just asking a question like, "Will you be my mentor?" It's like saying, "Hey, despite the fact that you don't know me from a hole in the wall, would you please share with me your 30 or 40 years of business, success?" So it kind of maybe sounds like being a entitled person to something, but because a mentor-protege relationship is just that. It's a relationship. Mm-hmm. So what I was just doing is, when you've got this person who you'd like to have as your mentor, don't approach that way, but take it a step at a time. Reach out to that person, let them know that you admire their work, you're in the process of starting a business right now, and that you understand they're busy. But if it would not be inappropriate, I would love to ask you a couple of very specific questions. And that way, what you've done is you've let them know that you respect the process, you respect them, you understand they're busy, you're not assuming anything, and you're giving them the out or the back door. You're saying, if it wouldn't be inappropriate, okay? Which, in that back door is very important. The person doesn't feel pressured, so they're much more likely to say, "Sure, a couple of questions is fine," right? And so when they answer those questions, and by the way, you want to do all your research on them. There's no excuse not to do that anymore with the internet. Mm-hmm. Make sure you don't ask them any questions that you could easily have found the answer to yourself, okay?
Right.
But you ask them a couple of questions, you don't take much of their time, you let them know how much you appreciate it, you look forward to utilizing it right away. Then that day, I'm going to suggest you send a handwritten, personalized note of thanks to them, letting them know how much you appreciate their time and you look forward to, and that you'll be back in touch and keep them up to date. Send it out that day, handwritten, hand-stamped, hand-addressed, okay? I would also, you find out their favorite charity, which again, you can find out easily online, and make a small, doesn't have to be anything big, make a small donation in their name to that charity. They'll be contacted about that. They'll be advised of that. Now, you're not doing it to kiss up to them or anything. You're doing it, again, just so they know you respect the process. And what you're communicating is, hey, I know I'm not in a position right now to add value to your life as you're adding to mine, but I want to let you know that whenever I can, I certainly will. Okay? And then eventually you'll follow up and let them know how things are going, maybe another question or two, and you go like that. And in time, if it's supposed to happen, that mentor-protege relationship will in fact happen. Will in fact happen. Excuse me.
So go a little bit slow, add value.
Yeah, and remember too, you might know that they are a collector of antique first edition, original editions of Stoic writing. Okay,
Right.
So do some research and try to find a couple of those volumes and send it to them. These are just the things you can do to add value and communicate your desire to add value to them.
I have another. This is actually segueing to something else, but I'm going to ask you anyway. So, for instance, with this podcast, somebody's probably watching it somewhere, and we're using it as a way to help people like yourself share their knowledge with our list, right? Which also then builds my credibility, and that's kind of what I get out of it. But it's
Sure.
adding a lot of value to people. But in itself, it's not a money-generating entity. For people that are sort of starting in business and they feel like, I understand the sort of go-giving principle, but how long is it going to take? What would you suggest to people that maybe have a podcast and don't have other revenue streams like I do?
Sure. Well, first of all, remember you're doing the podcast as a way of attracting those into your life who you would want to eventually work with, maybe. Okay,
right.
And it provides value to people like myself. It provides value to your viewers, and it's going to eventually provide value to you. That's not being a go-giver, and it's not being a go-giver. It's a good strategy. It's a wonderful strategy. Okay, but I don't want people to confuse being a go-giver, again, with not making money. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So when we say, so it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. It's, being a go-giver doesn't mean it's going to take more time to make money. It's going to take less time to make money because you're always going to be focused on ways to provide value to the marketplace in such a way that you will be financially rewarded for it. But there are strategies such as a podcast. I have a podcast too. Special reports that we have. We have a series of videos. We do it. Those are free, not because I'm being a nice guy. I'm providing value that is attracting people who would want my information and who would probably eventually pay for it to come into my world. That's a good way of doing business, but it's not the only way. It's one form of bringing in people. But, when you get into business, you'll do that along with the actual, prospecting you're doing that is going to elicit now prospects that you'll turn into now customers. But you can't force these things. So you've got to go about it in a way that's pragmatic, in a way that's methodical. Okay, you follow a system. I define a system as simply the process of predictably achieving a goal based on a logical and specific set of how-to principles. Okay, follow, but don't be attached to the results. Your focus must be on them. And to the degree that you can add value to the marketplace quickly, that's the degree that you'll make money quickly. But, but I don't want you to be operating out of a broke mindset. Like, in other words, when people say, well, I need the money. Oh, it's fine. So before you get into business for yourself, have a little money on the side built up. Mm-hmm. So try to get it so you're not going in with desperation. Right. Because desperation keeps you from succeeding. But there's also times that business is business. The cash flow is not quite there. Things get tough. It is tough. You know what I'm saying? So you've got to just find those best creative ways to provide value to the marketplace in order to receive the income.
And what are you kind of working on at the moment going forwards? What are you excited about right now?
Well, my business partner, Kathy Tajanel, who just is so brilliant and amazing, she and I are doing two things that we're very excited about that's really growing. One is a certified GoGiver speaker program where people who've been successful in an area of their life now want to be in the speaking profession, and they've either utilize the GoGiver or they believe in the message, and so now we teach them how to do that and so forth, and we take them through the training and we work very closely with them. The other thing, and we're really loving this, we just finished our, I think, fourth one, have our fifth one coming up, is what we call the GoGiver Sales Academy. And these are 2-day events, 2 full days, and we were limiting it to 12. We're going to limit it to 10 now. And we work very, very closely with these salespeople or entrepreneurs to help them really get their business together and take it to that next level. Really help them expand their value, increase their reach, and have a fun, successful, profitable business. So that's really what we're building right now and having so much fun with it.
Sounds amazing. And if we want more information about you, where can we go?
They could go to thegogiver.com, the GoGiver without the hyphen, just thegogiver.com. They can get a free chapter of my books. They can subscribe to the podcast if they'd like, find out information on the GoGiver Sales Academy, and pretty much everything else. It's all right there.
So guys, you heard it here. It's all about go giving. If you want to make more money, add more value, and check out Bob Burg's book on Amazon. He's close to 1,000 reviews now. Today there was 989. Will be 990 after I post mine. So as always, guys, if you listen to this podcast and you're into go giving and you believe in that, you read the book, you like it, then spend those 3-4 minutes or 1 minute even just putting down a review really means a lot to authors. And as well with this podcast, guys, if you enjoyed this episode and you want the go giving message to get out there, then hit the like button below or write a review on iTunes. It really helps us reach a larger audience. So Bob, thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, thank you, Erlend. I love the work you're doing, and you embody the spirit of being a go-giver. Thank you so much.
This podcast is brought to you by MrOutsource.com. Outsourcing to the Philippines done for you. Mr. Outsource is a recruitment company matching busy entrepreneurs with Filipino virtual assistants, so you can have the time to focus on what's important.